Each of New Mexico's 25 scenic byways represents a piece of history, but only one holds royal status.
During colonial years, New Mexico was tied to the outside world by one thoroughfare, El Camino Real. Dan Monaghan with the New Mexico Tourism Department has more about the historic trail.
El Camino Real is the longest and the oldest of New Mexico's byways. While its formal beginning traces back to Don Juan de Oñate's 1598 venture north out of Mexico, Native Americans used portions of the trail long before Columbus even set sail. Today, the trail itself is largely invisible, crossing desolate portions of New Mexico populated only by cactus, yucca, and mesquite. In fact, El Camino Real's Heritage Center overlooks a stretch of trail called Jornada del Muerto, or Journey of Death. These days, travel is a bit easier, since El Camino Real roughly parallels I-25 for most of its course across New Mexico. It is fitting that a modern-day interstate retraces the route because El Camino was the closest thing to a highway in its long-ago heyday.
The Camino Real was a lifeline to the rest of the world in the Spanish colonial period from 1598 to till the time the railroads came in the 1880s. This was one of the main routes and sometimes the only route outside of New Mexico.
The Spanish influence is apparent in virtually every town along the trail. The Mesilla Valley and Organ Mountains greeted travelers out of Mexico as they followed the Rio Grande north. Today, you can visit the remnants of Fort Selden near the Rio Grande just outside of Las Cruces. This was one of the forts serving in the mid-1800s to protect Camino Real travelers and area settlers from roving criminals and Apache raids. What is now the City of Truth or Consequences and man-made Elephant Butte Lake was a far less inviting point for Camino Real travelers. Here they faced Jornada del Muerto, leaving the river to cross waterless desert, traveling mostly at night to avoid heat, trying to reach what is now the Socorro area before their water ran out. The beauty of today's Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge, with its abundant man-made wetlands, didn't exist to greet Jornada travelers, but the river was there, as was a Native American pueblo, which became a Spanish settlement, which eventually became the city we now call Socorro. Socorro is Spanish for aid or help, so the settlement at the end of this dangerous stretch of trail earned its name. Farther north, what is now Albuquerque's Old Town offered fertile farmland and a convenient river crossing. The National Hispanic Cultural Center sits on the banks of the Rio Grande in Albuquerque and is devoted to recognizing the many Spanish and Latin American influences that flowed north on El Camino Real. The modern-day name of pueblos, Sandia, Santa Ana, San Felipe, Santo Domingo, along the route from Albuquerque to Santa Fe, are more evidence of that Spanish influence. And of course, Santa Fe itself is virtually a living museum of Spanish colonialism. Its churches, its artwork, its plaza, all can trace a heritage tied to El Camino Real. But this was not the end of the trail. Those initial Spanish travelers established the first capital of New Mexico at San Juan Pueblo, which has now returned to its original name of Okeowinge. Time and travel modes have all taken a toll on the trail, but key elements remain for tourists. And while physical evidence has faded, the influence of El Camino Real on New Mexico is still clear. Other trails and other times have helped shape the state, but it is fair to argue that none compare with the impact of the Royal Road.
And for more information about attractions and events along any of the state's 25 scenic byways, you can easily visit newmexico.org.
Well, coming up next on New Mexico Style.